Hi, and welcome to the second part of our parenting discussions, our parenting talks. And today we will continue from where we left off yesterday, um, and we will get into the real material. So today we will speak about two main approaches and two main strategies, methods of education. Um, and this will today we will go into a little bit of sources and a few sources. So we will really see some exciting things today. Yeah. Okay. So the book is called Planting and Building in Education. So why is it called Planting and Building? And we will answer that question today. What does it mean? There are two places in the Shemona Esrei, in our prayer, that we mention Yerushalayim. One of them is in the Boin Yerushalayim, and the other one is we speak about the Yeshua, Matzmiach Keren Yeshua. Rav Wolbe says that there are two completely different things and two completely different elements in how HaKadosh Baruch Hu and how Hashem leads this world. There is a binyan, building, and then there's tzmicha, it's blossoming, right? I'm still trying to find the right word for it, but it's tzmicha means to blossom or to sprout. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu leads this world with these two different hanhogis, two different almost behaviors, right? The tzmicha is an organic process. Something that grows by itself. Something that you build, you actively create. You need to put one brick on top of the other. That's how you build a building. Tzmicha, sprout, produce, happens almost by itself. You have to put a seed into the ground, and then it starts blossoming. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu uses two different methods to bring the Yeshua, to bring this world to its final state or to its goal. One is by building, right? Boin Yerushalayim. The other one is by Tzmiach Keren Yeshua, meaning there's an organic process in this world that also brings this world to its final goal. We also find another place where these two elements are found. It's in the beginning of the Ramchal, of the Mesilas Yesharim, a very famous work of the Moshe Chaim Lotzato, a big rabbi. He starts his book in his introduction with a very famous sentence, and it goes like this: Yisoid Chasidus v'shoyresh v'avoido hatmimo hu sheisbarer v'yisames etzel ha'odom ma choivosoi ba'oilomoi. So, to translate it very freely, means the foundation of righteousness and of Chasidus, v'shoyresh avoida, and the root of the service, of the complete service of Hashem, lays in that a person has to understand what is his personal responsibility in this world. Here we also find these two elements. There's the Yisoid Chasidus, the foundation of righteousness, the foundation of being, of achieving a very special, achieving greatness in one's behavior. And we also find the shoyresh, the root of avodah, of service, which is a root, which means it's something that needs to grow, needs to be produced. It's growing by itself organically. So Rav Wolbe says that that Ramchal chose these words on purpose, because in order to achieve greatness, you need to, in your character traits, you need to ultimately build one on top of the other, one trait on top of the other. We also find it, the whole book Mesilas Yesharim is built on a ladder. It's just, you have to you have to learn the Sefer, but that's why this book is built like that, because it actually refers to building up your character traits, which means you need to build. There's a certain structure there that needs to be built. But avodah, which we translate as service, or something that a person's service to Hashem and in this world, and how he navigates through this world, as a Jew, as an accomplished individual, or as somebody who is striving to become better, that needs to also have an organic process, and that's the growth. That's the shoyresh avodah. That's why it's a root. He refers to a root which you have to plant, and then, of course, we'll speak about it. You have to water it, and you have to make sure that it continues to grow. But we find these two elements also here. Another place where we find these two elements is in the Yomim HaNoroim, the high holidays. We have two very high and very special days or festivals. Yom Tovim, one is Rosh Hashanah and one is Yom Kippur. The Rosh Hashanah says Rav Wolbe, we don't find any type of vidui. We do not speak about sins. We do not speak about charota, we don't repent on Rosh Hashanah. Just leave it there, because there is an element of tshuva on Rosh Hashanah, but Rosh Hashanah doesn't speak about sins. Rosh Hashanah is planting a new seed into our life. It's his chadshus. That's why the Posuk says, the Gemara says, Kol shana sherosha b'tchilosa, mis'asher b'soifo, which means we begin a new, we plant a new seed, we plant a new being for the next year. That's Rosh Hashanah. That refers to our sprouts, to our organic growth that we want to initiate on Rosh Hashanah. Yom Kippur, on the other hand, is full of tshuva, is full of vidui. We list all our sins and we ask for forgiveness. And this is what Rav Wolbe looks and considers being a new binyan. So we actively try to find and try to build ourselves up from our current situation. So we almost break down the whole building and we try to build it up anew by taking on certain kabbalas, by promising certain things for the year, and new commitments and new habits. That is building ourselves up. So again, we find two elements. And finally, Rav Wolbe looks at this model and he says that's exactly what happens in chinuch, in parenting as well. We have two different models. One model is a model of growth, is a model of organic growth. The other model is a model of building, where we build our children in a way by
we'll speak about how. But these are two models. One is we plant seeds. We say something. We make a certain comment. We teach them something, and we let it grow, right? An example of that is we find in the Gemara, in the Talmud, we find that it says that as soon as a child begins to speak, what should the father teach him? And the Gemara says, Torah tziva lo Moshe. It's a very famous song, and it's a very famous. It's actually posuk. Torah tziva lo Moshe me'orosho kilas Yaakov. Moses, Moshe Rabbeinu taught us to taught us the Torah, and this is our heritage. So the obvious question is, a child that just starts speaking, he says, Mama, Papa, he doesn't know what you're talking about. But Rav Wolbe says this is the seed that we plant. So a child, the very first association that we give him with speech is something that has to do with our tradition. It's Torah, it's Moshe Rabbeinu, there's a Kabbalah's Torah, and we bring this idea into the child's life at a very early stage. And we'll leave it there, right? We'll leave it there. This is called planting. Anything that follows this model is called planting. I refer to it as seeding, but it's another word. It's planting. We plant a seed into the child at a certain stage. We'll speak about timing, and let it there, and then we nurture it. That's all we do, right? Of course, we mentioned it before. If you plant something, in order for it to grow, you have to also ensure that it has the right environment, right? If you plant a seed and you don't put any water, there's no rain, nothing happens, right? It dies there. So if we plant any idea, if we plant any new concept into our child, as strange as it sounds, but that's what it is. We give a certain idea to our child. We then have to provide the right environment for this idea to grow. So if we tell our children that there's Torah, and then there's Moshe Rabbeinu, and then there's Hashem, and then there's our tradition, then we have to make sure that at home there's somehow a representation of that. So of course, also a warm environment where the child feels secure, and in other words, not necessarily things that are related to that idea, but for anything to grow, it has to have an environment where it can grow. Yeah. So that's very important. So anything that has to do with growth has to also come with providing the right environment for it to be able to grow. We also find the element of building in education. And Rav Wolbe brings the example of the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, where it says that Ben Chamesh leMikra, Ben Esel leMishnah, Ben Chamesh leGemara. The Gemara lists a whole order when, at what age you should teach your children what part of the Torah. So at 5 you should teach them the Chumash, the 5 books of Moses. At 10 you should start learning Mishnayos, which is the oral tradition, and then at 15, when he's 15, you should start learning Gemara. The Gemara is already the Talmud, which requires much more of a analytical thinking, and it's more difficult for a child to learn Gemara. I don't think this is how we follow it today. In the religious world, we start everything a little earlier, but you can see here the element of building, right? This is building. The the Torah provides us a schedule almost when you have to start how to provide knowledge to your child. When should he start learning about halacha, about law, how we do things, right? Now, obviously, a child that grows up in a home where the halacha is followed and there's a Jewish lifestyle, he already picks up certain things by himself. So that could be considered, I guess, sort of building, but we don't proactively do it, so we don't really promote it, right? We, of course, invite our children to participate in everything we do, but we don't necessarily build it. So I'm not sure what to assign it to, but I think it's a little bit of both. So it's on one hand, we are planting these things into the child's behavior. There's a certain way and lifestyle of a Jew. So that could be like planting certain seeds, but it's in a way also a building block, right? It's also in a way we don't enforce it. So that's why I'm not sure. I'm not yet sure we can consider it building, but because there's a small element of enforcement, or a small element of being strict with certain things. So there are only few things we're strict about when a small child, in terms of halachic, requirements. So we find these two elements also in chinuch. So the Rav Wolbe touches a little bit on the topic of timing, but that will really be the next topic. But basically, he says that we have to be careful, very much careful. We have to make sure that we discern between the two methods and between the two different models. One cannot exist without the other. You cannot just let your child grow up by itself. You cannot just send over messages and not do any type of building, because then the child, and let the child run with it and then, see what happens, because then the child grows up to be something wild almost. Yeah, because it's almost like, it's not a good example, but it's almost like letting if there's no framework, then organic growth will not do any good. If you have a nice garden and you just let it grow, it's not going to look so nice. Same for a child. You cannot just send over messages and plant seeds and not give any building, and not have any kind of provide any kind of structure, any kind of requirements and expectations. That's not good. At the same time, you also cannot have the building alone, because if you just focus on the building, on developing habits, developing certain behavior, expecting behavior, and not let the child to a certain degree, and that of course will differ from each child, but the idea that the child has to develop itself, and there's a certain things that a child has to organically produce himself, that element must exist. Otherwise, you're creating a robot. That's what he calls it. He said, if you just build up a child, you create a robot. And we have that. So it's very interesting now that we've kind of outlined the difference between building and planting. You can start to see already. You can start analyze yourself, but you can also start looking around and seeing that some people are more built, other people are more more developed themselves, or have more of a nature that they've developed their own self, right? Less of a building. It's very difficult to have very strict borders, and of course these two parts of a person, the ones that grows and develops and provides a person a certain own initiative to do something, and where a person feels that something is growing inside of him, something is developing inside of him, and the other side of it, where a person, you know, forces himself to develop certain habits and control himself, right? It's very difficult to have very straight borders, but you can definitely see people who are built and are maybe don't, you know, have not really developed well, and that probably comes from their childhood. In fact, I once wrote an essay. That's really not for now, but I once wrote a small essay on what I believe one of the biggest crime was of the Soviet regime to the Jews, like their I would say psychological or emotional crime. So I, coming from the former Soviet Union, and you know, being around a lot of people from Russia, I can see that there is definitely, I'm not afraid to say, and that's my opinion, there's a certain element of having being built. So people are built, and there was no room left for developing your own thoughts, developing your own, you know, showing personal initiative to some sort of in different areas. So again, this is not for now, but it's an interesting thing that you can also probably see. Also, if you look at your children, you'll see how are you parenting your children. What is your style, if you wish? I know there's parenting styles today. And by the way, by no means, I would say this is the only way to parent, and we haven't really touched on the do's and the don'ts. But I believe that this is a beautiful foundation, and from now we can start. You know, we can now speak about timing. We can now speak about how and the tactics and the strategies, how to plant and how to make sure that our child really give the child the opportunity to grow, but also how to properly and with the right ways to build up a child. All right, and I think this is really good. This is real food for thought, right? And so I hope this was interesting. We stop now. We stop here. And just one small thing that I may have skipped here is, again, he refers to timing. So timing means that you cannot ask your child, you cannot start planting anything in your child at the wrong time. The same goes for building, right? We spoke about the Mishnah that speaks when you should start teaching your child certain things. That also means you cannot do it earlier. So if you start expecting and teaching a child to do something when it's not the right time, when it's too early, you know, think about teaching children to sit at the table, and, you know, not move around. You have to be very careful at what age and at what time you start expecting those things, because at some point, up to a certain age, a child cannot do that. So if you start planting that seed too early, something else might be produced in the end that could be harmful, right? So we spoke about that last time, and we'll speak about that in the future, in the next time, the right timing. So again, I hope you found this valuable. I'm happy for feedback to get feedback. I hope you liked it, and that's it. See you next time. Bye bye.